Before I get started, shout out to Back When. I discovered Back When a few days ago, actually, listening to my Pandora station, and his song Duality showed up on my Pandora list, and I loved it. I reached out to him, and he said it was cool if I played his music in the background. So that's what we're listening to. I changed my setup a little bit, so hopefully you can see everything a little bit closer. There was one line that was throwing me off. This line right here. It's supposed to be similar to this, where it gets larger near the bottom. But it's kind of throwing my eye off a little bit. So I may make some changes. But it looks like it's in relationship to one of my reference lines that I can still see. But it's still just kind of throwing me off. That's like almost an inch. Yeah, it's straight. So I'm going to leave it alone. All right, so when I'm doing this stained glass piece, one thing that I want to focus on is when I have a lot of different lines, I want to make sure that I'm painting what needs to be painted, that particular color, because sometimes it can be really confusing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a gray and I'm going to start coloring in all the darker spaces, all the darker blocks of glass, the sides that are away from the sun. So my reference drawing doesn't include a sun, but I wanted to add a sun because I needed something in the background. Because the foreground is really busy, I wanted something in the background. And plus it allows me an opportunity to add more color and add more shading, which I think will make it more impactful, more dynamic. And so that's what I'm going to do first. So like this piece, a lot of the pieces in the foreground, they're all going to be a dark or like a lighter gray. And then I'll do my first coat with that color and then come back with like a darker gray, some blacks, a little bit of white, and just make it more realistic with like a traditional stained glass piece. So that's the plan for today. I still have my palette paper from last time I was in here. It's getting tighter and tighter with all these tripods and cameras. Now, one thing that I don't want to do is I don't want to make, not that it really matters at this point, but I don't want the gray to be too dark. It's easier to go darker than it is to go lighter. And we begin. And this is my third stained glass piece. And so one thing that I'm doing a little bit differently than what I've done in the past is I'm getting much closer to the line. In some cases, getting right up on that line. Because a few times in my other stained glass pieces, I haven't gone far enough. And the problem with that is when I do my black line over top of it, sometimes there's like a tiny gap that if you look really closely, you can see. Where I'll have to make the line a little bit thicker, or I'll have to go back and add some color, and it's no fun. Now, the only thing with having a tripod on here is that I'm not going to move my easel as much. Which is unfortunate for me because then I'm going to have a sore back. Sore than it already is. And so this is going to be important to leave a gap right here because I need to know exactly where that line is. And the reason why I'm starting with this gray is because I know that this is going to be a dark gray, and that will help me understand how everything starts to unfold. Speaking of back, this is my reminder appointment for my chiropractic appointment in about an hour. So I usually don't like to fill in with this smaller brush because then it gets overworked. And then it won't last as long. So this gray is actually a little bit darker than I was anticipating. But I think I'll still keep it. So right now I'm taking a slightly larger brush. See, I'm already liking the contrast of this dark gray because I know that everything else is going to be much lighter. And I try and create a full spectrum of color. So initially, I didn't really use black. It was one of the very first things that was quote unquote taught to me. But I like including as many colors as possible. I like the heaviness of black. It really creates like a dynamic contrast in the paintings. So I always try and find ways to incorporate it. At least, not always, at least recently. So this first layer, I'm just being easy with it. I don't have to stress too hard. I don't have to pay too much attention because I know I'm going to go over top of everything again. So this is already starting to pop out, which I like. And again, I have to remind myself to keep these spaces so I know where to come over top with that heavier black line. It's not the end of the world. I can always try to figure out where a line needs to go. Being a little bit too loose with that line. So I'm going to have to clean that up. But that's what's nice about this stained glass is my line work doesn't have to be perfect because I can fix that with a solid black line. So I'm going to switch back to my thicker brush. To cover up more distance. And be more efficient. So then those are finished with the first layer, and then I just have to continue working to the right. So I don't know the lyrics of that song, so I'm gonna fast forward that. So I might actually widen this, and that's what's in the reference image. So we'll see. So one thing I still need to change, I'm not there yet, but I need to switch the rectangles from being vertical to horizontal, because I feel like it needs to change to balance this building right here. All right. So I will get to that line work, and as I'm painting, I kind of forgot that I had another area that I might want to tighten up over here, because my plan is I want these buildings to go from lighter to dark. So the side that's closest to the sun is going to be a little bit lighter. And so I have a couple different ways I want to accomplish that. So I still have about 30 minutes left in this hour session, and I'm about halfway done. But I'm actually going to change something real quick before I add paint on that side. This is the side that I was talking about, how I want to change. And I want to make this horizontal. I'm running out of space with all these microphones. So that line needs to be corrected. All right. So that was important because now these horizontal lines and these horizontal lines more or less match this, which is important. And then these vertical lines are more or less matching these vertical lines over here. So that was really important for me to do. I'm still kind of deciding if I should raise this up a little bit. But I think at this point, I'm just going to roll with it. When I was looking at it during the day, it didn't really catch my attention, so I'm not going to spend any more time thinking about it. Alright, so the only thing with this setup is that at some point I'm going to have to cross over in front of the camera. I'm going to change one thing because this just threw me off a little bit. I think just too thick on that side. It's not that big of a difference, but it still adds some differentiation. Once I'm almost done with these shaded sides, So I was a little nervous that these proportions weren't going to work. But now that it's in person, and now that I've shaded in some of these sides, it does work. Because this one is larger and closer. So it was like putting an emphasis on this side of the canvas. But now that I'm looking at all the different gray sides, it's compensating for that. Which the artist that created this original drawing understood. It's becoming more apparent now. So that's a good stacking point because I have to get ready for my appointment. Thanks for joining.